Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and I'm here at the Las Vegas airport, as you can see. And the TSA here in Las Vegas have found new ways to molest the public, but this time it's not as physical as it has to do with your identity, your privacy, and collecting information that you could only imagine how they will use down the line in kind of a Chinese control grid type system that we've been talking about for so long. It used to be conspiracy theory, now it's real, and we're going to get into it in this video. As this article from nextgov.com says, which by the way I confirmed with the TSA website, TSA launches facial recognition pilot at Las Vegas airport. And as the article goes into, the agency will assess how the tech verifies travelers' live facial images against pictures taken from travelers' identity documents. The Transportation Security Administration will conduct a short-term proof of concept in Las Vegas McCarran International Airport to examine how effective facial recognition technology could be at automating travelers' identity verification, according to a recent publication from the Homeland Security Department. For passengers who opt in, the agency will assess the technology's capability to verify travelers' live facial images taken at security checkpoints against the images on their identity documents. Then I quote, TSA expects that facial recognition may permit TSA personnel to focus on other critical tasks and expediting security processes, resulting in shorter lines and reduced wait times, officials said in a privacy impact assessment regarding the proof. Biometric matching is also expected to increase TSA security effectiveness by improving the ability to detect imposters. The agency plans to use biometrics to identify 97% of travelers flying out of the country by 2022. Last year, TSA performed an initial proof of concept capturing real-time facial images from biometric-enabled automated electronic security gates to passengers' e-passports at the Los Angeles International Airport. Instead of using automated security gates in this pilot, TSA will use a credential authentication technology device with a camera or a CAT-C device to authenticate passengers' identity documents. The device also will collect the image and biographic information from those documents and capture live images of passengers' faces. The ultimate goal is to ensure that biometrics work for verifying passengers. To participate, passengers will voluntarily choose to enter a lane dedicated to the proof of concept, TSA said. Ultimately, the agency plans to collect live photos of passengers' faces, photos from traveler documents, identification documents, issuance and expiration dates, travel dates, various types of identification documents, the organizations that issued their identification documents, the year of passengers' births, as well as the gender or sex listed in the identification documents. The agency assures that the data will be obfuscated to the greatest extent possible. TSA plans to store the data on encrypted hard drives that will remove daily and transfer to DHS Science and Technology Directorate personnel weekly. Biometric information cannot be recovered from the templates produced, and the information will only be used for the purpose of the pilot, it said. The agency also plans to consult with the National Institute for Standards and Technologies during the assessment of the algorithm and to ensure that all methodologies meet industry standards. According to the agency, signs will be posted and handouts will be shared to provide an appropriate amount of information to individuals as they ultimately decide whether or not to participate in the pilot, whatever appropriate might mean. The agency's communications unit will also work to share information about the program with the public. And I quote, TSA envisions that facial recognition ultimately will deliver a significant increase in passenger throughput and improvement in security at the checkpoint, it said. The proof of concept will help determine next steps for implementing further automation of the TDC process. So it always comes under the guise of convenience at every single time, as we've talked about so many times before. Now, of course, the Department of Homeland Security says that they will delete the information after 180 days. Now, anyone who actually believes that, with everything we've seen over the last few years that has come out, has to be a brainwashed slave at this point. I mean, come on, how stupid can you possibly be to think that after everything we saw from the NSA and all these other agencies, that they would actually delete this information. Now they say it's voluntary, and of course it is voluntary at first, like it has been in Australia with the facial recognition passports, but we also know what that has turned into in Australia. As interest rates go down, they push for the cashless society out of desperation, and that includes collecting information like the Chinese, and we know how the Chinese used it. At first they said it was just to stop bad guys, and now it's like you're not allowed to fly, you're not allowed to go to this restaurant because you have a social credit score and you have no freedoms left, and you can't do anything about it because if you protest it, once again, you will end up with a lower social credit score, and you will be restricted from buying a house, getting apartments. It'll ruin your life. It'll give you some kind of honor system within the state. They do that kind of stuff in China, and they will work towards that in places like Australia and the United States eventually. That they said by 2020 they want to 2022 they want to roll this out. But by 2022, they'll have a huge monetary crisis on their hands, likely negative interest rates long before then, I believe. And what do you see in other countries? Well, Sweden went negative, and they followed that with a crazy cashless society. Again, you can't save your money. You can't run on the bank. They can do bail-in regimes. They don't have any cash in the bank, so there's nothing to run on, and they control every move. If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's, and if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never yours, it's always a bank's, and you are essentially enslaved to the banking system and the state. So as they print vast amounts of currency, and then you see this kind of stuff rolling out, it's a slow incremental frog boil move towards that complete control grid that we've been talking about. I mean, look at what's happened again in China. They slowly roll that system out, and over, I'd say, about 10 years, they've really capitalized on it. And now, you are completely controlled if you live in China. And of course, we've seen a lot of big moves by the Hong Kong protesters, and people eventually prevail. But it's terrifying, to say the least, that people are put into this situation where, they always say under the guise of convenience that we're going to do this, and then you have no choice after a while. They collect that data. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook went and helped develop the Chinese social credit system in China, and now he's developing all this information collection technology on Facebook. And what do you think that's going to be used for eventually? Of course it's going to be used. So this idea of them deleting it, of course they're not going to delete it. They're going to say they deleted it, and they're going to hold all of it, because why wouldn't they? The government is run by a bunch of psychopaths, so why would they delete that information when they could use it against you inevitably in 10 years or so to control you further? It's all just like saving for the future. It's their pension, so to say. And they know it's the only way that they can prop up their system, because eventually people will lose taste at a greater level for this authority that has completely enslaved everyone, stolen people's money, extorted them, killed millions, and taxed people to death, and regulated everything to death. And at the same time as that, they are making these really unpopular moves, and eventually people say, hey, this is ridiculous, and it's like, well, sorry, you can't do anything about it, and we will scare you into submission. Fear is what they use best, of course. That's almost all they have. They will scare people into not protesting what they're doing. They will scare people into submitting. They will scare people into giving up every last little bit of freedom they have left, because if they don't, it'll hurt them monetarily. They won't be able to make money for their family. They'll be bankrupted. They won't be allowed to travel. They'll be in a giant prison, and if not an actual prison. By the way, I would be remiss to not mention that Las Vegas was one of the first major airports to go almost entirely cashless, to the point where it was just absolutely ridiculous. They would make you go to the counter, and then if you couldn't use a credit card, you had to take your debit card. You'd have to go downstairs, go to an ATM, take out cash, go from the cash thing to the credit card machine and create a temporary credit card with the cash, and then bring that upstairs, and then it would take a $5 fee, and then do that. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So they were one of the first ones to roll that out, and now you see that everywhere, almost everywhere anyway. And so for those that are wondering, yes, Las Vegas is a testing ground, and no, this doesn't mean that it's secluded to Las Vegas. It's probably coming to a place near you very soon. So again, as this rolls out, keep this in mind. If you voluntarily agree to do this, okay, whatever, that's on you. But be aware that this information will not be used for good. It's like, yeah, sure, convenience. It's the same reason that they say the cashless society will stop criminals, or the TSA will stop criminals. And we know how that has worked out. I mean, the TSA has still not caught a single terrorist. So how many years have they been around? Instead, they just grope children, and they toned down the groping children a bit because people didn't really like that so much. But they're still groping old women, and they're still making your life difficult and putting you through crazy biometric microwave scanner technology that affects your health. Now, you can opt out, but nonetheless, they really give you a hard time when you do opt out, and then they grope you and molest you further. So again, they either molest you physically, or they molest you physically, and they take your identification and they use it down the line for who knows what. And we know how the AI is working out. AI can be a good thing if the free market takes advantage of it. Whatever your definition of artificial intelligence might be, it can be a good thing down the line. It depends who's in charge of it. But for the most part, what we're seeing right now is a completely technocratic control grid. And we saw the move towards China, going back to the 70s when Kissinger met with Mao Zedong, allegedly against Nixon's wishes. And then that led into the creation of the Trilateral Commission through the alliance under Zbigniew Brzezinski in the late 70s. And that led into this massive push towards exporting goods from China into the United States and elsewhere, and it created what led to this trade war today, which is causing all these problems and hurting farmers as well with all the tariffs. So it all goes full circle. The government comes in, creates problems, builds up the fear and the chaos and order out of chaos, and then comes down with a solution, which is another problem, which leads to more problems in the future. You know how it goes. It's a perpetual paradigm, Hegelian dialectic, a problem, reaction, solution, repeat. Forgive me, it's like 6:30 a.m. So I had to do this video while I was here because I found out about this right before I left for this airport here in Las Vegas for my flight to Anarchadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which I'll be speaking at. So this is really important. Again, they're probably already collecting facial recognition data. They've been doing that in London on the streets for a long time, over a decade, I believe. And we have seen that move in Australia. In Darwin, they have a complete smart city grid that they're putting up, Chinese style. Now they're saying they're not using it in the same way as China has, but they're getting a lot of the technology from China, and you could only imagine down the line it would benefit them to use it in that way, and they probably will, because why wouldn't they? Government likes more control. The more control, the better. The more they're able to, bring the masses to heel and stop people from actually rejecting the ideas of the state and rejecting the ideas of the banking system and the extortion and the taxes and regulations and perpetual paradigm. So anyway, I know most of you are sick of going through TSA and getting groped. I sure am. Half the time it makes people late for flights, and now it's like, oh, well, here's a convenience. How about instead of having to deal with as much trouble and getting through the line quicker so you can catch your flight, you can go through this biometric scanner, which is not good for you at all. And then at the same time, you can go through a facial recognition port where they will collect your information. And they say they're deleting it. Just trust us. Just trust the government that is the most untrustworthy entity in the entire world. The entity that collects information on everyone and watches everyone's every move and has cameras everywhere that probably are already completely fixed with facial recognition technology. Sounds good, right? No, it really doesn't. And I think it's about time that people completely reject this. But what do you do, right? You can't just give up ever going on another flight, all that kind of stuff. So I guess it comes from popular demand, but I think it's more important to develop new technologies that replace the old ones. So what are the people doing in Hong Kong? Well, they've been pointing laser pointers at all of the facial recognition cameras in the streets, which is great, but they're also wearing masks. They're also wearing stuff on their face that will mess with the cameras. Now, it sucks to have to wear masks everywhere, right? That's not convenient. I'm sure there will be new things that come out, like those license plate covers that look normal, but when a camera takes a picture of them, it blacks it out. I mean, that's genius. I mean, that has stopped a lot of people from being extorted by the state for going 10 over the speed limit. Or, I don't know, going through a red light in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere where there's nobody. Stuff like that. But, oh, no, it's for safety and convenience and all this kind of stuff. So now we need to steal your money and give it to paying off the interest on the debt, which we fraudulently create through usury, social contract, legal tender laws, as well as blowing up babies. Because, freedom. Anyway, I'll be back at you guys with much more. Help us out in any way you can, because these kind of videos are heavily demonetized, and they have been deleting our videos straight off of YouTube. Just completely deleting them. They've been deleting countless independent media channels, and they're demonetizing us, and they are shadow banning the F out of us. We have lost 80% of our audience since the beginning of this year because they're only showing our videos on toy reviews and makeup reviews. So we need your help more than ever. $1 a month, that's all it takes. If 10% of you did that, or if 10% of you just did like 1 cent, I mean, think of how much of a difference that would make. That would be $1,300 a month just alone, if 10% of you gave 1 single cent. So just think about that, guys. Before you know it, these medias will be completely gone, and people will wonder whatever happened, and all you'll have left is Fox and CNN and all that kind of garbage. And you'll never get the real information, and you'll be enslaved. Mind, everything. Privacy, monetarily. So it comes down to you. You are the change you wish to see, and you will save independent media and help us win this information war. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, as we are so heavily demonetized and shadow banned to a crazy extent. We have lost about 80% of our reach since the beginning of this year as they rip away subscribers, etc. It has gotten out of control, and it's becoming more and more difficult to stay alive here on World Alternative Media, bringing you guys free content every day. You can also check our Bitcoin address in the description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out on all these other alternatives like Subscribestar, where we are doing subscriber only content for people at the $4.99 US a month tier and up. We really appreciate it. You could tip us on there and pledge anything, but from $4.99 and up, we are giving people subscriber only content that you won't find here on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, there are so many alternatives for YouTube these days, including BitChute, which we are on at World Alternative Media, as well as, of course, the new flote.app, flote.app, where they are truly replacing all of these social medias, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, Reddit, and of course, Twitch and Patreon, all in one place, and it is truly incredible what they are doing. We are moving over there in mass, as well as BitChute, BitTube, Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, all those other places, as well as PocketNet. We are on as well at World Alternative Media. There's so many options today, and we're trying to get into as many of them as possible because we need to back ourselves up. We are winning this information war, but we are getting to a point where they're cracking down more desperately than ever, and we got to do whatever we can to stay alive, as it's getting more and more difficult all the time. We also have events coming up, including Anarchadelphia 2019, which will be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in September. Check out thestateofanarchy.com and anarchadelphia.com. Linked below, use promo code WAM, W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to this amazing conference, as Anarchy is going viral. Also, make sure to check out the Winnipeg Crypto Conference in October. Also, use promo code WAM, another great event with amazing speakers, and of course, Anarchapulco, the one and only, in February 2020, which you can also use promo code WAM for WAM and save 10%. There's so many things that you can do to help independent media, including just pressing like, sharing, clicking the notification button, doing whatever you can to help keep this free information alive that's alternative to the mainstream. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.